All right, folks, here we go, finishing up Chapter 8, and now we're going to talk a little more about multi-channel programming. And as we deal with this now, we're moving from the broadcast world more into the cable and satellite world. Let's talk about tiers of service. The basic tier, basic cable service, normally consists of local broadcast channels, public access, educational, and government channels, which are grouped together in what's called PEG, and a limited number of other networks. It's going to be a rather small offering that allows people to perhaps get their local broadcast channels and a few other choices if perhaps antenna is not a viable option for them, and to try to keep the cost of that somewhat affordable. Expanded tiers feature many popular cable services, and there are also additional subscriber tiers devoted to high-definition programming, other specialized types of programming, and these types of things. They add more channels, more variety, and, of course, more cost. Premium services like HBO and Showtime are individually priced on a monthly basis, or they're sold as part of a premium package. And then you have pay-per-view programming. This involves paying for material per event. Many different types of sports events or concert events will fit into this pay-per-view category. Every once in a while, you may still see a major movie event that's offered as part of pay-per-view. So those things are available for consumers on a case-by-case basis. The cable, satellite, or telco provider normally pays each network a set fee per subscriber per month to carry its programming. Some networks are known for mass appeal programming, while other services are targeted towards various niches or smaller audiences. Your general types of programming audiences may include stations like TNT and USA, which offer a lot of drama-based programming, versus TBS, which offers largely sitcoms and that sort of thing, versus FX, which tends to do a lot of movies. And then, of course, you get into various niches where you have the comedy channel versus the documentary channels versus sports channels, and on and on and on. Cable networks will put their strongest programming in prime time, but will also look at counter-programming opportunities and positioning strategies against the broadcast networks. Cable has more and more become a place where you are seeing more original programming that comes up and goes right up against the broadcast networks, and can at times garner a significant audience compared to those broadcast networks. So sometimes they'll go head to head, and sometimes they'll try to strive for audiences that perhaps the networks are not going for at that particular time. Some management issues in programming. Intense competition for audiences. Audiences have multiple choices for listening and viewing, and this goes beyond just the traditional broadcast environment. You now have, in addition to the main networks available on broadcast TV, you have the various netlets or sub-networks that are available. You also have the various different sub-channels of different types of content available, where certain markets may have only had perhaps a half dozen TV channels to watch once upon a time. Those TV channels have now splintered into various types of programming, and it's not uncommon nowadays to be able to receive 40 different streams of broadcast on your local antenna in receiving television. But on top of that, you have the various cable choices that are available for those that subscribe, and now you have endless supply of streaming services that are vying for attention. There's also the demand for more research that is causing some angst with management. With fragmentation increasing, managers and advertisers need more than just demographic ratings and shares. Lifestyle and psychographic research, along with geodemographic data, is used to pinpoint specific attributes of the audience served by individual programs. That makes all the stuff that we talked about in the data and research chapter very important. You can't just say, hey, we have a thing, come on and advertise and be a part of us. You have to justify why it's worth advertising with you. You've always had to do that to an extent, but now the pressure is really on to say, what sort of audience do you have? How does your audience behave? And therefore, do I even have a chance in advertising with you to see some sort of a return on my advertising investment? Brand development and brand extension. Audiences watch programs as opposed to channels. Once upon a time, when it was just the big three networks, there was this philosophy that people had their favorite network and they would tune into that all the time. They would always watch ABC or they would always watch CBS. Well, it turns out that that was not the case. We care about the actual content of the shows that we watch. And that has been proven more and more and more as we have more and more choices. All programmers are interested in building brand recognition for their content nonetheless. So if you are known for airing a certain type of programming, if you're known for your sitcoms, if you're known for a certain type of drama, whether it's a crime show or a law show or a medical show or something of that nature, then you can have your network associated with that kind of content, just like many cable channels are associated with their type of programming that they offer as a whole. Discovery Channel is known for documentaries. ESPN is known for sports, on and on and on. The rising cost of programming. High-quality programming is expensive to produce and distribute because of the cost of materials and the cost of people to work on these shows, whether it's talent or the folks behind the scenes. As costs increase, programming bears greater pressure to generate profits. You can't just make a thing. You have to make a thing and then make money as a result. One basic reason why reality programs, talk shows, and news magazines dominate television fare is that they are relatively cheap to produce compared with scripted programming. So they may not necessarily get the huge ratings, but because the cost to produce the content is so low, it could still generate a significant profit compared to a well-produced, very expensive show to make that gets really, really high ratings. In the radio industry, satellite music formats or voice tracking can eliminate the cost of an entire on-air staff, and there are stations that have taken advantage of that. Regulatory concerns. Regulators continue to express concern over certain types of media content, usually targeting programs featuring sexual and violent content. It continues to be debated throughout the industry, throughout the FCC, throughout Congress at times as well. And the ways to which we balance that idea of freedom of speech versus responsible use of the airwaves, that debate will not go away anytime soon. Finally, the multi-platform environment. The constant challenge for management is to determine which platforms to use to offer content, and then perhaps more importantly, how to monetize these efforts through the creation of new business models. And along with that, the idea is how much are things worth? So we're talking about new models of revenue and pricing and things like that in order to try to create that balance of the audiences that are coming in versus the effectiveness of the advertising versus the ways that advertising is targeted to certain people, which means data becomes a huge commodity. And we've talked about that in the past as well. So it's a completely different way of thinking about the worth or the cost of a particular program and the work that goes behind making those things available. So that's going to do it for Chapter 8. We hope that you enjoyed this little session that we've had here together over 3 videos. Now, time to get to work. Turn in those notes and study questions, finish the survey, and come to class ready to talk about the things that you've read and listened to, and we'll have some scintillating conversation as a result when we get together.